good afternoon and welcome to this post-budget roundtable that we have. I'll just do a very quick introduction to everyone on the panel. We have Dr. Lavish Bhandari, who's now President of Center for Social and Economic Progress, that's CSEP. Mr. Anil Bharadwaj, Secretary General for Federation of Indian Small and Medium Enterprises, that's FSME. Mr. Unni Krishnan, who's the Joint Director General of the Federation of Indian Export Organizations, that's FIO. And Mr. Narsi, who's our principal advisor at Jakarta. So I'll just give you a very small introduction to Jakarta Sumpoorn, which is an index which has been tracking the sales activity of MSME since 2019. It has been very steady, averaging around 0.57 over the last year, despite all the global trade shocks that we've been going through. But in November and December, it showed an upbeat. It went to 0.61 in November and 0.60 in December. So it's, as we stand today, we're looking at a very positive, very rosy picture. And the budget has given us this long-term view, which is also, a path for sustained growth. And everything is looking quite rosy and extremely positive. We're entering the new financial year with very good sentiment. So I don't want to take up much time, but I just want to, start talking to all the experts we have here. So I'd like to begin by asking Lavish to give us this broad overview from Delhi. What is the government's vision for small businesses, and where exactly does the budget fit into this?
Thanks, Sumita. Great to be here. Giving credit to the government within whatever their vision is, they've actually ticked all the checkboxes, right? The problem, I feel, lies with the vision itself. The government does recognize that SME will continue to play a very important role. It does recognize that the SME sector needs some sort of a support. What that support tends to be a problem because it's not very clear, I feel, on what support actually really needs. The third thing, the government continues to rely a lot on easing the financial burdens of SMEs and is really unable to understand, I feel again, the other issues which are far more important. There's a lot of talk about ease of doing business and all of that and deregulation, etc. And we all know that that's a part of India's plumbing. You need to actually, make correction on that side. Now, if you're not going to make correction on that side, then we will have to keep on giving different kinds of subsidies or different kinds of additional support or interest subsidies, etc. And that's what the government is doing a pretty decent job of. Right? Now, the question is, okay, fine, what are the really major problems here? The first and the foremost is that our local governments are actually just completely dysfunctional. So they cannot take on any of the tasks which are really important. Space or location, that's very important. Having the different kinds of facilities that SMEs typically need, that's a problem. The logistical framework that's required around SMEs, that's a problem. I think all of these issues, local governments are unable to take, and the central government keeps on once in a while, intervening and trying to correct it here and there, etc. That gets, you can only do so much there. So that's one class. The second is this whole issue of various regulations. The government says they're going to deregulate. It's going to be impossible to do. There are many of these compliances which are really critical in a smooth functioning economy. You can't have a smoothly functioning economy without compliance. The problem is the entity that is enforcing these is actually completely bankrupt of ideas, and so that's the problem that the government is facing.
If there was something, so we'll just be very brief about this, but if there were a couple of things that would be on your wish list, and from the central government, that is, what do you think that they could do?
No, I think we really need to learn from China. When the managers of the local governments were both empowered and made accountable for the economic growth in those areas, they are the ones who will need to do a whole lot of changes that are required at the local government level. Now, until and unless we make them accountable and, of course, empowered enough to be able to take such decisions, it's going to be extremely difficult for someone to go out and, from Delhi to say that you need some sort of an industrial park out here, and the industrial park needs to have plug and play, and it needs to be functioning well. It's going to be impossible to operate these like that. So that's one. And the most important thing is you need to empower the local government managers. They could be a mayor, they could be the CEOs who are actually government bureaucrats, right? So it could be either, doesn't matter. But you have to really empower them and make them accountable on the small scale sector. That's really critical.
Okay.
So that's the one thing that I would change first if I could.
So actually asking for change at the ground level is what you're looking for, right? For small businesses to move.
So I just want to bring in two elements into the discussion right away. One is this rather very, very important EU FTA deal that got signed just a couple of days before the budget got announced. And I thought that it's much, much relevant as to what the budget seems to be doing in that context. And I would like to pose some important questions to Mr. Unnikrishnan in that context. But just before I request him to step in, 2-3 things which I'm seeing is that, one, access to 27 country deep EU market. Basically, this is something that we've been all waiting for and de-risking our high exposure to the US economy. And very, very immediately, we've also been pleasantly surprised by a very favorable announcement from the US president as well, bringing down the reciprocal tariff. Of course, we'll wait for some more clarity, etc. on this front, whether it's truly the icing on the cake now that EU is also happening to open up the markets, and at the same time, the US is also responding very favorably. We should be knowing the details in the next few days. But I did see, and this specific question is to Mr. Unnikrishnan, I did see that very immediately, close to $33 billion worth of exports will go into a zero tariff line, and that would represent about 70% is what the press release says. And also the massiveness of the market opportunity of $24 trillion. These numbers are extremely large, and the various sectors seem to be already going to be very immediate beneficiaries. Where do you see immediate action happening on this front, and how do you see very specific regulations, etc., coming into play to enable exporters and more specifically MSMEs to really get a flying start? Over to you, Mr. Unnikrishnan.
At the outset, let me thank Team Jakarta for inviting me, and thank you for this very good questions, which is very relevant today. If you look at India's manufacturing landscape for the export per se, we mainly export or manufactures low technology products. And if you look at the global trade, almost 84% of global trade today comprises of medium and high technology products. That 84% is showing very high growth. And when you are serving that demand, if you look at our profile, only 24% is into this category of medium and technology products. And as India, with the 26% of GDP in manufacturing and services and 51% plus, so we need to increase our manufacturing and have capacity so that we can take over this kind of opportunity being provided by FTAs. Look at the various FTAs what we signed, be it EU you mentioned, and UK, Oman, and Australia, and the surprise deal with US, which is expected to announce detailed shortly, as you mentioned, all giving tremendous opportunity for India's manufacturing sector. And in fact, if you look at MSME, as you are aware that 40% of MSMEs are contributing to India's exports. And if you look at just an example of 85 billion last year we export, 85 plus billion last year we export, in this 56% was from MSME sector. So when you are talking about opening of EU market, we should have a good manufacturing base based on technology-driven products, maybe the traditional products. We should have also adopt technology and sustainability and also efficiency. So this government's approach to strengthen domestic competitiveness while deepening India's integration into global market is both timely and also necessary. If you look at the budget, what we focus, which given very clear signal. One is for manufacturing competitiveness. Then secondly, infrastructure and logistics. which is very, very critical if you want to take the advantage of these FTAs. In fact, various studies says that our logistic cost is around 10 to 12%, whereas global average is in single digits. So there is a lot more to be done in getting us into that field. So budget also focused on medium-term and long-term infrastructure and the logistic cost improvement. Then a lot talk about MSME empowerment and trade facilitation and easy on doing business. In fact, you are aware that recent past we lost a lot of opportunity related to manufacturing coming from other regions because of our easy on doing business is not well known, because our ranking is around 63rd out of 190 countries, which has been I think 2024 study says. Then another focus was given on technology, sustainability, and skilling. I think all this together, we should be able to reach to this EU market. But one of the major issue which not addressed is related to CBAM, carbon border mechanism, which will be a one hindrance to reach, especially MSME, to reach that market, and which is already extended to steel, aluminium, and cement. However, it is definitely is going to extend to other product group. So this is an area which government also take a lot of initiatives, even though some areas have talked about sustainability, etc. But we need to have more focus on this, especially on how this CBAM related issue can be attended, because it cannot be negotiated. They already told that. So today we don't have a proper carbon credit mechanism which is at par or which is approved by EU. So government should need to address this, which we were expecting, but it's not come. But budget also focus on green manufacturing, renewable energy, energy efficiency, sustainable finance, etc., which all help Indian manufacturers to align with emerging global regulations, and hopefully we'll able to achieve $2 trillion by 2047, which is the ambition. I think we can easily achieve that.
So one question added to that, so very specifically, from your perspective, which are the industries that are most likely to be the ready to run at the starting gate to be able to actually realize the immediate advantage of reduction and bringing it down to zero tariffs? Do you see textiles to suddenly blossom into very huge exporting sector immediately? Do you see that happening for marine products specifically, etc.? Which are going to be the focus areas for MSMEs? Because these are areas where MSMEs are also pretty well present, including gems and jewelry, of course.
Yeah, yes, you rightly pointed out. In fact, all labor-intensive sectors expected to get immediate attention and immediate benefit, because if you look at EU as well as US, the labor cost is quite high. This is where we are having advantage, and we continue to take that lead. So taking from textile and garments and chemicals, fertilizers, and many sectors is going to get much more attention. And above all, agriculture and processed food is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries, especially UK and EU is concerned, because there are a lot of issues related to shortage of food, shortage of processed food items. Including UK, we have seen that the recent past prices are escalating. So this is an area I think we should be able to get benefit. Apart from all traditional sectors, we already pointed out, be it textile and leather sector, also one of the major sector which are going to get benefit.
Fantastic. So over to you, Sumita.
So actually coming back to the basic fundamental, one of the challenges that really small and micro businesses have, given the export potential that we are now facing, on the ground challenges that the small businesses have is one of delayed payments. And FSME had done this path-breaking study with GAME and CTFO recently about delayed payments challenge for small businesses. This budget has got 4 measures announced for strengthening the TReDS. So I wanted to know from Anilji, how significant an impact do you think these measures will be to change the way the micro and small businesses operating? And how soon do you think this turnaround can happen?
Thank you, Sumita ji, for inviting. So first of all, I think if I put it in one word about this budget, I would say that no big bang, but a steady hand. And as Lavish ji has said that, she has tried to tick almost all the right boxes, be it demand, inflation, interest, growth rate, etc. So to that account, the macroeconomic indicators are favorable, and surely this would have a benign impact on the growth of MSMEs also. Now, I would respond to your question in the way that, TReDS has been facing a couple of structural problems. And although, so far as its IT infrastructure is concerned, it is perfectly okay. People are aware of it also. But most of the companies, like, buyers, although they are registered, particularly CPSEs, but they have not been transacting. So they have not been allowing invoices to be uploaded. So what the government has done this time is that it has made it mandatory. And by making it mandatory, what has happened is TReDS has become kind of a clearing house, so to say, for payments of MSMEs for the goods that CPSEs would be buying. Now, it would have a couple of things immediately. One is that you would know that how much is being bought from MSMEs. They will have a clear digital trail available on the platform. So naturally, because we have a 25% set aside for MSMEs, so you would know that, which particular CPSE is following, which is not, etc. Live information.
Right.
Second is that who is paying in time and who is not is also become available. If you're not paying in time, then whatever other measures are there that would come into force, but at least for MSMEs, they would be having an opportunity to get it financed. But here again, there was a structural problems. Banks found it difficult to finance MSMEs whose credit ratings were not good. Number one. Two, similarly, if the buyer's credit rating was also not good, they were not willing to finance invoices. So now, because they have now linked it with CGT MSC, so this problem is taken care of. So there is already insurance available in case of default. So they will have an extra comfort for financing MSMEs, either even if their, you can say, balance sheet is not of the top rank, or the buyers is also not AAA rated. So this would, I hope, expand the liquidity and I think accelerate the financing of MSME invoices.
Right.
Another thing is that GEM portal. Now, because GEM is something that government is using for government procurement, and government has now made it mandatory for CPSEs to go it through TReDS. So naturally, it was obvious that GEM and TReDS needed to be connected. So that's what they have announced, that GEM and TReDS would be connected. I'm pretty hopeful. See, already TReDS have collectively financed invoices approximately in the range of 2.4 lakh in FY 24-25. I'm sure this number is going to jump after making things mandatory for CPSEs. This is for the TReDS part. But there are a couple of other announcements specific to MSMEs. So if you have time, I can go through them quickly.
Definitely.
Yeah, creation of the champion MSMEs. So both Lavish ji and my previous speakers have pointed it out that MSMEs are suffering from a problem of scale. And in order to take advantage of these new opportunities that are being created either through India, EU FTA or India-US deal, ultimately it would depend that whether MSMEs are capable to exploit those opportunities. Do they have scale? Can they meet the national, international standards? And also have enough financial capability to sustain large volumes of trade? Because in India, EU FTA particularly, technical standards are going to be the most important thing, whether it is related to CBAM or whether it's related to other green regulations that are being discussed in European markets. So I think it is important. That's why this champion MSME scheme is very important. So they have announced a 10,000 crore rupee fund, SME Growth Fund, which is going to help in facilitating access to equity. Now, equity is one of the major bottlenecks because of which MSMEs have not been able to scale up. But as Lavishji has rightly pointed out, that finance is one thing. And sometimes, while you are sitting in Ministry of Finance, for all the solution of the problem, you try to look through the finance. If you have provided the finance, as is the problems are going to solve. Right. But if you look at the MSME budget, as well as the budget allocation of most of the ministries, you will find one peculiar thing, that most of the ministries have not been able to spend the money that has been allocated to them. In the case of Ministry of MSME, only 50% they have been able to spend. Now that means the question of the state capacity to utilize funds. You come up with programs that create outcomes and impacts that are desirable or strategically. That is something missing, and I find, so far as MSMEs are concerned, the credit dominance and the financialization of MSME policy. So from a macro perspective, that reinforces a credit-heavy growth strategy and not a capability building strategy. That's the moot point, I guess.
I have another add-on question. This is addressed to the larger group. I mean, I'll be happy for any of you to take this. There have been a lot of references in this budget to the process of import clearances to be expedited. And there is an acknowledgement about the National Trade Facilitation Plan 2.0, where there is a goal to achieve 2-day clearance, not in excess of 2 days, is how I recall. And that the seaports as well as the airports aren't yet at that number, because it's even only 50% or 55% seem to be meeting that kind of goals. What is going to change very quickly at the ground level, which makes import clearances and export clearances much faster for an MSME to be able to manage their inventory and working capital in a smarter way? Because you get stuck on logistics or you get stuck at the ports, etc. Is it going to be very immediate? How do you see the benefits translating on the ground to the MSMEs in this area?
It is a very, very valid question. In fact, even continuously, if you look at budget announcement, they're talking about simplification, investment is technology, etc. It's continuously talking about. But even today, as you rightly pointed out, getting clearance, especially for manufacturers who depend on import components, it's very, very critical, and many times they're forced to stop their production because there is no predictability of clearance of cargo, be it export or import. That's the biggest concern. And this is where finance minister also talked about improving by investing in technology, especially artificial intelligence, and see that without manual intervention, if they're able to clear the goods, that should be. It will take some more time, but I'm sure that a lot of technology is coming in related to artificial intelligence, so that export cargo or import cargo without much hindrance can be cleared. That is one aspect of that. Secondly, if you look at today's system, custom system, they do not interact with other government agency system, be it DGFT, be it the RBI. So what happens? There are a lot of mismatch of data. So that also creates a lot of hindrance in clearance of cargo. Second aspect is related to various agencies involved in during clearance, be it export or imports. There are a lot of certification process, etc. Even though they brought in single window clearance system, practically as an importer, what he needs to do is he has to apply everything online, and once cargo goes, they have to go manually, sit with all these agencies, and make sure that they upload it. Because most of the agencies are not in that system, and they are not practically not into the IT component and not integrated. So this is an area which I think government is seriously looking into it. So the single window clearance in practically, I think it's going to help the trade industry to clear the cargo much faster space.
I would like to add here also. See, there are a couple of things to be noted. First, the experience of cargo getting cleared either for export or for import differs very widely within India. So if it is JNPT or Haldia port, the differences are enormous. So with the same set of rules and with the same kind of infrastructure, digital infrastructure, single window, etc., the experience of exporters and importers varies from place to place, number one. So that means there is still a lot of manual involvement in the process, and that's why the difference. The second is that in the recent meeting of the Board of Trade, a presentation was made, and very soon we'll have single interface for all the agencies that have to say something with regards to export and imports, whether it is testing lab, whether it is certificate of origin, whether it is different agencies involved in the process, all of them are connected to one single interface. And I think that is a vision, I think if it is realized, can have a dramatic impact going forward.
Thank you. One more question, sir. I'm sorry, it's very interesting, and I will have to ask this question again to the group here. There is going to be, it's been announced that there is going to be a large focus on the 200 legacy clusters, and more importantly, debottlenecking the clusters from an infra perspective, from an effluent handling perspective, from the logistics perspective, so on and so forth. If that be so, and I just went through the clusters also, starting with, I have the data which says, okay, textiles form 40 clusters, we have engineering 30, handicrafts 25, so on and so forth. How many MSMEs would actually be comprised in these clusters? Because I think that could be a very humongous number where they once again get better capacitized, as you all already mentioned in the beginning. How are you going to make sure that they're all now rendered capable to produce and export as well as from a domestic perspective, and get the benefit of both the FTA and the budget announcements?
If I would like to take it, I think this announcement of 200 clusters, when I see it from the budget allocation, so there is no mention of any additional amount in the Ministry of MSME outlay. MSME CDP program still continues to have 431 crore, which has been there last year and the previous year also. So for this 200 legacy cluster, what they intend to do and how much money they are going to put on the table, it has not been spelled out. I would say that this is still is at ideation stage. Maybe after a lot of discussion, other discussion, things will become more clear. Now, coming to your question that how much would be MSMEs comprising of these clusters, almost all the clusters are comprised of MSMEs only. Majority of them are MSMEs only in these clusters. Typically, legacy clusters, as they are calling, are the clusters you can say that are there for 50, 100 years, many of them for handicrafts, but not necessarily handicraft alone. For example, Muradabad, it will have handicraft as well as machine, or Aligarh, or similar clusters around the country. So there the issue is of infrastructure and technology. So the hint that they have given is on these two fronts they would like to have an intervention, but let's see when the details come out. I think at this moment it's very, very patchy.
I just want to add what Anilji has mentioned about one of the major issue which faced by this kind of cluster, because most of the clusters are not at all doing well, because there is a large number of small players there, but they're not doing well. One is mainly because of the connectivity to the port or connectivity to the main center, because a major vehicle cannot come, even that kind of many clusters are. So the road development is connecting road is the necessary. I don't know whether it will come in this proposal. Secondly, common effluent treatment and common facility centers, which is not at all available there. So thirdly, related to raw material availability, there should be some raw material supply centers, which can be created, especially on the handicrafts related places, etc. So that will helpful for the smaller players to, do better. So that kind of cluster to be upgraded, unless they do that, it's not going to help us, along with the missionaries and other things.
A lot of the issues related to clusters are problems of local governance. It may be either the municipality, that the road is, even if they build a road, it's rarely repaired. Effluent treatment is a local government issue. The ability of other facilities that are there is a local government issue. Electricity, water, all of those are related to the plays out. And if it's not in an urban area, even in a rural area, it is actually in the ambit of the district administration. Now, this is where these problems are coming in. All that the government can do is provide finance. Because that's the one mechanism which is working relatively efficient. So they do that. The others, you have to go through the local governance system, and that's where. So I think government needs to identify the problem first before it is able to, suggest the different kinds of mechanisms. The cluster issues, I don't think, can be solved. It's not going to be so easy.
Actually, tying this, so what Anilji was talking about, the budgetary allocation being exactly the same, ties in with this, that if it's the beginning of an idea, then they will have to get down to the actual implementation on the ground to sort out the nitty-gritty for each cluster separately wherever they are.
Actually, I just wanted to come here and add to what the question that Lavishji has raised about the municipalities and the capacity of the state at the local level. Now, a couple of very important announcements have been made in the budget, and that need to be seen in the context of what the economic survey has laid out and also what the Finance Commission has explained. In between, what has been pledged in the budget is allocation of 5,000 crore per CER over 5 years, over lakh crore for the cities, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Now, this is something remarkable. This is exactly to address the same thing. Now, what the Finance Commission says is that it has doubled the allocation to the local municipalities to 7.91 lakh crore, which is double than the last Finance Commission. And for the first time, they have made it mandatory that they will have to get their accounts audited, number one, and they will have to put it into the public domain. I think many of the issues that Lavishji has also raised and we are also facing at ground may be addressed by capacitating the municipalities and local bodies and with finance and maybe with improved governance structure.
So that one question which I still be keen to pick your brains on is about the 10,000 crore SME Growth Fund. How do you see the ground rules evolving for rapid selection of eligible SMEs to be identified and for them to benefit?
So most likely, SIDBI is going to be heading this fund in all probability. And I think it could be, there could be two ways. One, some part of it would be used for creating as a mother fund, and there would be daughter funds created for different segments, maybe different sectors also. This is one way of going about doing it. And second is that SIDBI has its own direct connect with MSMEs. So, and MSMEs through, for example, there is an institution called Center of Excellence for Aspiring SMEs, which FISME and IFCI has set up, and SIDBI is also involved. We have an MOU. So there are a number of MSMEs that are coming to us that are interested in raising funds with the help of external equity. So I think we have a good numbers already present. There is a demand also. So spending this money should not be a problem.
Wonderful. Sunita?
Yeah, so actually, we have all our newsletters and our commentary that goes out to regular readers. They have sent in some questions, and one of them, the little link to what we've been talking about, is that how does the budget concretely reduce the compliance burden for MSMEs beyond intent statements? So the question is, are there any measurable time that a small business can expect? Like, are we looking at a quarter? Are we looking like at rolling which are the measures that we can see immediate impact over the next quarter or over the next half year?
I don't think there is any concrete initiative in the budget that would reduce cost of compliance. Maybe a statement or two with regards to customs. Some simplification, but let's see, what it pans out. But otherwise, there is no specific measure. As a matter of fact, the budget is almost completely silent with regards to improving access to justice and enforcement of contracts. One area where India is perhaps at the bottom of the heap. And the allocation also remains the same. It has not been increased for Ministry of Law and Justice. So I would say that they have sort of parked this problem maybe for the next budget.
Okay. So actually, that's really interesting that you said that the contract enforcement has not been taken up or addressed, which is also a part of the delayed payments issue for people, right? Where we are today, we've had a very turbulent year, a lot of uncertainty, we didn't know really what was going to happen from the thanks to Trump tariffs and then the war, and there's been a lot of upheavals. And we've actually sailed through this quite well. Everything has gone quite well, but we're trying to maximize our potential. Everything is looking very good where we are right now. Everything is looking really very rosy. So it just makes us wonder, what are the risks that you would expect small businesses to prep for at this stage, and how do you see the year ahead panning out?
Okay, one important aspect as far as MSME is concerned is involving technology. Unless they adopt technology and even as labor-oriented production, unless you use technology, artificial intelligence, etc., it will be very difficult in the coming years. And how we can be more competitive in production, that makes you profitable and makes you grow. So that is an area which one has to use technology and artificial intelligence and see that they invest in that. Especially this is the time where government also putting in a lot of money and a lot of funding also available with organizations like SIDBI, especially on technology upgradation fund also now being extended during this budget also. I'm sure that unless they do their homework well, it will be very difficult for them to survive in the competitive environment. Especially, we are also opening our market for global players.
Right.
Even MSMEs, UK is dominated by MSME players. So we have a FTA and we also open up many sectors. So we have to be competitive with them. So unless we prepare ourselves now, it will be very difficult in coming years.
Okay. Anilji?
I would say that many things actually we need to set it right if we want to take the full advantage of the opportunities that are emerging within India and outside. Otherwise, what would happen if we don't have enterprises which are of right scale, having right scale of economies and capacity to produce goods and services required by domestic market as well as abroad, then the opportunities will not be exploited by us. So, except maybe a couple of items that we are already exporting, handicrafts, garments, leather, etc. Maybe we'll do a little bit 20% more because of the FTA, maybe 30% more. But that's not, I think, should be our vision. If we really want onto the bandwagon where we become part of the global supply chains like Vietnam has done, Indonesia has done, or Thailand has done, then I think we'll have to have access to technology, much better technology than what is available to Indian MSMEs. And for that, they would be needing scale, they would be needing finance, but also they would be needing the kind of ecosystem, the regulatory environment that gives them more confidence to take big bets. Currently, actually, it is very, very, I would say, adversarial ecosystem that we have in India. And that's why majority of the people are not interested in manufacturing, but they are interested in services sector, where there are different challenges, but much lower in terms of gravity as compared to the manufacturers that manufacturers face. So I think we'll have to work on all these areas, regulations and access to technology and scale. And of course, in order to achieve all this, they would be needing finance also, maybe through equity route also.
So you both see the year ahead being, you have a positive outlook for the year ahead.
Oh, yes, sure.
Definitely.
Okay, I'd like to add to that. I think they're extremely important issue. We have worked on the labor laws. However, it is a one step taken. There is a large path ahead, a long path ahead. The labor laws are not enabling flexible hiring. Over time, there are many issues related to that which are right now constrained, especially at the micro and small level. And then there are, of course, all those other mandates which increase labor costs, so which is also preventing the informal sector units from becoming formal. So the point I'm trying to make is we have to continue working at them. We cannot say that, okay, fine, one reform has happened, now we stop. No, it can't. It has to be an organic, ever-changing process. Second, 200 clusters is not going to solve India's problem. The small-scale sector is a very large, very well spread out sector. You have to understand that there is a space problem for the SME sector. You can call it what you may. You may want to create clusters, you may want to create other things, industrial parks, etc., etc. Whatever the point is, we need that around every single city, every single demand center, there needs to be large amounts of spaces where SME can set up. So we still need to create that pool. The space is a very, very serious problem. A third one, which is also mentioned out here, is on this issue of contracting. No SME can afford to go to the court for anything.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, you're working in a state where the SME can only work on repeated contracts and, of course, reputation and personal networks. So that is going to be a third. These are all long-term constraints.
Right.
In the immediate, actually, I don't see any challenges, Samita. I think in the next 1 year, it's a phenomenal path ahead, even if there are some ups and downs here and there.
That's great. So we have everybody ending on a very positive note for a change. Narsi?
What I see is absolutely, I echo the sentiments of the experts here. And what I see is that, the right set of policy announcements has been made. The MSMEs have actually demonstrated a lot of resilience in the face of certain adverse events, especially the tariff, etc., which really shook up the entire space. And they've admirably acquitted themselves. But notwithstanding that, what is it that they should be doing from their side from here on in order to be not caught by surprise? And what is it that they would expect from the government to operationalize these policies quickly is perhaps what will allow them to ride the crest of this opportunity that is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity to get started into getting access to a huge market and to actually become global players, albeit as SMEs. So it's very, very positive to see this. I'm only hopeful that MSMEs should also step forward and seek the required help and assistance that I'm sure is available, and also building the awareness. Because from Jakarta's side, for example, we do help MSMEs understand their own businesses by fetching consent-based information about themselves, such as GST, etc., of their own performances. And when we hold the mirror to them, they are themselves surprised as to the facets of their performance and non-performance, and allows them to introspect and get course correction done. So in a way, digitally, the data infrastructure, the DPI, has actually helped a lot of MSMEs to become much more comfortable with fetching the data with help of fintechs like us, and starting to make sense out of it, both from managing the business as well as from even establishing their behavioral collateral with the institutions. So that's also I see as a great thing. So overall, I think the sentiment is the best that one can expect. And it would take two hands to clap. The government is doing its bit, but I guess being aware of the schemes, being aware of who to approach, if this is strengthened from the MSME side through various important bodies, associations, etc., I think it would be a great step to help them all move forward more confidently. That's my take on this.
Okay, that's really great. Actually, just as an aside, yesterday when Narsi and I were prepping for this roundtable, both of us were like, everything is so good. Like, the bad part was that the negative part is that we couldn't find anything negative at all. So that got us actually a little worried that maybe we're missing out on something. But it's good that everybody is, on board with the point that as a budget, in the end, it is an accounting exercise and the intent statement of the government. So capital is being taken care of to a large extent. And then there are a lot of intent statements which will get realized over time. But the fundamentals to actually reimagine, MSMEs is again going to be, like you said, land, labor, law, state capacity. These are the things that we would have to really work on over the long term together, right? So thank you all for being here. It was a wonderful listening to all your views.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Most appreciated.
Yeah.